Welcome to the Busy Bariatrics podcast, the place where we cut through the noise, ditch the BS, and give you real no-nonsense advice to thrive after weight loss surgery. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most important topics for bariatric success with protein. To help us break it all down, I have the host of the Dietitian Dad podcast, Michael Murphy, a registered dietitian who's been working with bariatric patients for almost 20 years. Currently, he is the clinical nutrition manager for AZ Weight Loss Clinic, and he has helped thousands of people not only lose the weight, but keep it off for good, freed from the fear of regain and all the health issues that come with it. Michael is a married father of 3 living in Phoenix, Arizona, and works with clients worldwide to help them optimize their nutrition post-op. So if you ever wondered, am I eating enough protein, or why is everyone yelling at me about getting 100 grams a day, we're about to break it down and so much more. Mike, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for the intro, Rob. That was amazing. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very, very, very long intro on my part. I want to say, though, your podcast, when I first had bariatric surgery, was one of the North Stars of my process because there weren't many podcasts out in the bariatric community that really focused on here's kind of almost actionable items, or at least the nutrition and research and science based
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
what inspired you to make the podcast?
Man, when I was, this was about 4 years ago. So, at that point, right after COVID, there was a lot of free time, right? So it was a perfect time to figure out how to start a podcast. I knew I had a lot to share. I knew I had those years of experience that I would constantly get the same questions, usually when I saw patients in the office. And I'm like, wow, if all these people are asking these questions over and over again, why not put an episode out addressing it so that other people can learn? And that's really why I did it. So it was a fun thing. My daughter named me Dietitian Dad. I thought it was a cute name. It stuck. It's catchy. And there we go. And I figured I'd do bariatric mostly, but dive into other topics if need be.
Plus, you're a double phonetic. Dietitian Dad, Michael Murphy. Like, it kind of, you could be a
Good point.
superhero, what you have
Good
going.
point. I'll train for that. I'll keep working on it.
You already are in my book. And I will say, the
Thank you.
podcast was such an important part of my process. And so much of it comes down to the fact that you have a really good balance of here's what you kind of notice as a pulse in the community. And then from there, you kind of go through here's the science and here's how it works out. How do you kind of craft everything to, answer all the questions that come across your desk every day?
You get me, Rob. It's exactly what I do. And I appreciate that you see that. It's a lot of work. When I put a podcast episode out, I make sure that it's well researched. I'm always learning. There's new studies every day. So I research it. I really want to make sure when someone's listening that they're getting not only the problem, but the solution to it and understanding what other people are going through. That's huge. Like, people think it's only them all the time. And it's not. Like, someone in the office might say to me, I have weight loss surgery at, 3 weeks in a row. I haven't lost any weight. Okay. Pretty normal, especially right after surgery. Do an episode on that. Make people understand it. Do a TikTok video on that too. Like, that was what I got started the TikToks before the episodes of the podcast. So there's endless amounts of things you can talk about. I'm sure you realize that.
Yeah. And I think one of the best parts that I can tell you're a true teacher at heart with everything. Because for a lot of my content as well came to what am I constantly getting questions at? How can I give at least my definitive answer for that time or point in the day? And then kind of go through there. And that's why I couldn't think of a better person to kick off season 1 with, or season 2's first episode to cover everything with protein.
Yes.
So starting with the basics, if someone comes to you and has no idea what protein is, what do you walk them through what it is and why it's important?
When it comes to protein, you either want to dive a little bit deeper into the biochemistry of it, or you want to keep it simple for the layman. Most people, from my experience, don't want to dive into the biochemistry of protein. They glaze over and they're very bored. Of course, I enjoy some of that stuff. But so if somebody just wants to know what protein is, it's the building blocks of your muscle. It's the building blocks of your DNA in your body. So you just have to go with that and just understand without protein, you wouldn't be walking around on this planet. We're made of it. So you start there. And if people want to learn more about protein, sure, we'll dive into the fact that proteins are amino acids, right, Rob? So you have your 21 amino acids. We get into how many there are. We talk about essential versus non-essential amino acids. And I think that's not boring, is it? I mean, it's good to know that your body can make some and you have to get some from food. You can't make them. So not all protein's created equal, right? So you have to make sure you're getting the complete amount of protein. So I kind of go with that starting point and go from there.
Yeah, I think it's always important to have that mix of knowing the science and everything that goes to it, but also being able to explain it to a level that the average person walking into a bariatric center exists. And it really does answer the question we'll see throughout this whole season of the difference between registered dietitians and nutrition coaches. Registered dietitians have just such a wealth of like it.
Too
When
smart.
people are like, "Oh, are you like a registered dietitian?" I'm like, "No, they have been trained, educated, like they have a full level with everything." So we know we need to get protein. How do we kind of assess where do we need to start prior to weight loss surgery, immediately after? Like, kind of, if they're pre op, where should they be thinking about protein?
So let me see how I can answer that the best. I would say the goal is to focus on what are we going to do after the surgery to maintain this muscle mass that we have on us. I mean, everybody has muscle. I don't care if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or not. You're going to have it, and you're going to want to keep as much of it as you can. And Rob, you're a great person to talk to about this because most people know you. You've built a lot of muscle up, especially over the last year or 2 or 3 years. But we want to focus on how much protein is required to at least maintain the muscle and avoid losing it, knowing we will still lose it. Because let's face it, Rob, you lost 100 plus pounds, you lost some muscle. There's nothing you could do. You couldn't have done anything about that. So we try
Especially in my first year because I did not prioritize strength training.
to.
So it was like I whooshed, but definitely lost fat and muscle at the
You
same
did,
time.
and that's why it's you're a great person to speak up on this too. But we look at that 0.8 gram per kilogram number all the time. You probably heard that. Many people have heard it. Yes, you have to convert your weight to kilograms, and it's annoying. But okay, you divide your weight by 2.2, and that's your number, and that's your base. But if we even break it down to not even the kilograms and all that stuff, most women need about 60, 50 grams of protein, just baseline. Men are more like 70 to 80. Easy to remember. Okay, fine. But for real, actual amazing progress and to kick butt, you got to get more than that, right? You got to get more than that. I mean, speaking of Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock or any of these well-known muscular guys, whether they're taking extra stimulants or not, they are getting 250 plus grams of protein a day. It's well documented. It's not even it is. And we know they're huge. For most of us normal people, we don't need 250 grams. But men are going to need 100 unless you're like a short guy, 5'3", 4. You got to get 100 grams of protein or more, just baseline, especially if you're training. I try to assess every patient individually, but I know there's a lot of different listeners, right? So if we do it generically, if you're a female, at least 60 to 70 to 80 grams a day. Men over 100. But honestly, if you're going to strength train like Rob does, and you're going to work out in the gym like Rob does, Rob, you better back me up on this. You're getting 150 or more a day, right?
I'm actually closer. You were like spot on. I'm about 225 on my active days, and then I have like 2 light days where I skimp at about 150 grams of protein a day.
That's awesome, Rob. Seriously, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you were getting over 200 a day, and it shows in your body, in your pictures when you're wearing a tank top. Like, I'm not saying people have to look huge or look swole or look whatever. We don't care about that. We care about carrying that muscle around to be a fat burning 24/7 fuel furnace, and then protect us in case we do hit a dry spell. We have that muscle to back us up. If you look good, great. If you're strong, great. But you're not going to be able to build that unless you're like Robin eating 200 grams, or let's just say 150 for sake of argument, grams of
So
protein.
someone doesn't freak out when they hear all that.
Right.
Because whenever I put my macro splits down, one, I think they freak out because they're like, "How are you a bariatric patient?" And two, it's kind of like a lifestyle approach that you kind of have to take for part.
And people are afraid of gaining weight, and they think that, oh, that's too much, whatever, and then you're just going to put weight on you, and you're a testament to the fact that it didn't, unless it put on muscle, which is fine. Yeah, so people, I don't care, 80 years old, 20 years old, female, male, we know protein's important. Everybody goes on a high protein diet to lose weight, right? But they're somehow scared of consuming too much of it, I guess. Not sure why. You get that a lot.
I feel like it goes in cycles. When I talk to my mom, she's a little bit older, obviously, than me because she birthed me. But also as a nurse, I think the concern of high protein, when you look at like 40, 50 years ago, there was all this thought that like if you have too much protein, it can cause kidney damage.
True.
Which a lot of that has been shown that like that's not necessarily true. Can you just kind of give the background of why that myth is kind of out there and why only certain groups should be concerned about their protein intake, roughly?
Yeah, like the byproduct of excess protein, there's like a in the biochemistry world, there's a nitrogen fall off of it, which is processed through the kidney. So you see that all that push through the kidney, it could make it the kidney unhealthy, have to work harder, and so forth. You're right, though. I think over the last maybe 10 years, we've seen that that's not really a problem unless you're at unless you, of course, have kidney issues, obviously, or you're at some range that's insanely amount of protein, which nobody's going to consume, like 500 a day, 500 grams a day. But in the general protein world, eating too much protein isn't going to hurt you much. The only thing I would say is if you don't utilize that protein, if you're just laying around in bed all day, you enter this new phase called gluconeogenesis, which is basically converting protein to carbs and then converting those to fats if the carbs are not utilized. So you go down the chain from protein to carbs to fats, and you can store that as fat. So there is a problem if the excess protein is consumed and not utilized. But again, who has to worry about that unless they're really consuming too much or just blatantly eating tons of protein? And if you have weight loss surgery, you're focused on every bite. Who's going to waste that, and who's not going to do that training they need?
It's funny because I think a lot of the times when people think like I'm getting big, I'm getting heavy because of protein, I'm like, let's look at the whole picture of what you're eating as well, because I doubt there's anyone who's to even eat 200 grams of chicken breast is a daunting task
Yeah.
that like you'll tap yourself out. Trust me, I have tried to do just 200 grams of protein on chicken breast just to see what a day of that feels like. You'll get to about 11 o'clock in the morning and be so bored and full
Mm-hmm.
that you're kind of done and tapped out.
Good experiment you did on yourself there. Yeah, you just can't gain weight on protein. I mean, I guess you can, of course, any excess is going to hurt. You're right. You cannot overeat it. The only way you can gain weight on protein, as you would understand, is if it's fried, oiled, sauced, and just, doused in other calories. But those aren't protein calories, right? Those are other calories. So actual protein is not going to ever cause you to gain weight that I can think of.
Yeah, it's funny how that all works. And I joke of like protein 40 years ago was like the worst thing ever. And then I think in the 90s it shifted to fats because everything went fat
Yeah,
free
definitely in the 90s.
because nobody really understood. I feel like fat is a macronutrient.
Mm,
And I can speak personally. Like I was that dude who would eat like a box of Snackwell's cookies because it said fat free on it. And I'm like, oh, I could totally eat these and not really care, not realizing I'm gaining like an extra 3,000 calories into my day.
and the food industry did a lot of harm that decade for sure.
Yeah, and now we see it with carbs are kind of like being a little bit victimized on everything, which I think means protein is due to come back
No,
for having this.
no,
It's too evil.
no. Protein's immune. It's done.
It gets a pass.
Nobody's ever gonna turn on protein. I cannot see a day when that would happen. I can't see it. We'll see
You
though.
know what though? Like you see the people who come out and put things on TikTok and Instagram. I always will say like just because it's not true doesn't mean it won't get out
Dude,
there
you're
and get a
right.
follow.
You got me. I mean, kale is the worst thing in the world. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some crazy stuff on there. You're actually right. You're actually right.
Anytime I see someone demonizing vegetables, I'm just like, please, like, can we revoke like this off there?
But
Um,
they want that. They gotta want that for attention. I don't even buy into it.
I always feel like that's probably the toughest part for dietitians and the good trainers and everything is we really do have very unsexy approaches of what will get you results in bariatric surgery
Right.
as well as with fitness and nutrition. It's not a secret formula. There is nothing, and I say this politely to you, there's nothing revolutionary, I think, of what good registered dietitians or trainers offer. It's ruthless execution and understanding of tried and true principles that we know work.
Absolutely agree with you. There is nothing, and I don't care. I'm not going to change for that. And my principles are too, and my dietitian, my RD is too much at stake. I'm going to be boring if I need to be, and if people don't want to listen or follow, then that's on them. And if they come back to me because they learned a lesson, fine. But weight loss surgery, coming back to that, like that's not an easy choice for anybody to make. It is a helpful choice, but they still have to do all the boring stuff too, just because they have surgery, right? So I'm still boring to them sometimes. Or
I think it's probably at every bariatric patient's journey, myself included, is you eventually get to a point where you realize, like, oh, I do actually have to focus on nutrition, fitness, and everything else. And it's a cool turn for some, or it's a scary turn for others, where I feel like you either have to lean in and be like, I do have to learn and incorporate all this, or they kind of stagnate or struggle with regain or other issues that can come down the line.
Yep. Yeah, it's really sad when someone regains weight. Every time a person regains weight after weight loss surgery, a tear might fall out of my. I hate it, and I don't know how to stop it. I can only do my best, or any of us. But the hope is you can turn that person around.
Yeah. If a client comes back to you and is struggling with regain, what are some like tried and true steps to kind of help establish one, how do we stop the weight from continuing to come on? And what can we start to adjust to get our results back?
The first thing you want to look at is because a lot of people will blame it on their stomach, their pouch, whatever you want to call it, stretching, whatever. We want to get away from that. That's not really happening. What we want to look at is the cause of the weight regain. And I would say 60 to 70% of the time, maybe even 90%, I should, if I could do a study, I should. It's grazing and snacking more often. They weren't doing that the first year. They were focused. They were like, okay, I'm eating my 3 times, I'm eating my 4 times. I call it the truck driver's diet, right? You're in a truck all day. You don't know the difference between lunch and dinner. There's no separation. There's just food next to you the whole time, and that's going to hurt you. So when I point that out to them, they always, almost 90% of the time, say, "Yeah, I've been doing that." And the other one is the obvious one, and they start getting into Starbucks, Dutch Brothers. Do you have Dutch Brothers there?
We don't, but I hear nothing but great things.
Yeah, it's great. Dutch Brothers, Starbucks, whatever you want to call it, habit that increases their calories, probably doubles them. I mean, 500-calorie drink and you're on a 1,000-calorie diet, right? Once we have established those two habits, we work on those. Now, what do we do? We of course get to, me and calorie counting, but, for anybody else, I'm not a huge fan of it just because I've worked in mental health and it got to me because a lot of people would become a little bit too much obsessed with it. But if someone's
Absolutely.
absolutely, but if someone's healthy thinking mindset, you want to get them on a calorie count because that'll get them to understand, yeah, they're eating too many calories or consuming them in liquid form. That's the first thing you do. And it's, again, is that revolutionary? Not at all. It's simple, but you got to see it. And the patient has to commit to doing it for a good month just to see where they're at. And then
And I think,
you go from there.
yeah, I think it's funny when people ask me, like, well, how do I get away from tracking macros or counting calories? And for me personally, I always say, like, well, understanding just the base of where you're eating and what sort of foods or template eating from tracking of getting an idea of where you're at least gives you an assessment. And then the sooner you kind of figure that out, you can get off it pretty quickly.
You can.
Um,
Yeah.
but it does have a lot of, like, it is mentally exhausting to track everything you eat every day. And
Yeah. Nobody wants to
it's,
do it
I
forever.
don't think, I always say I'm the exception, not the rule. Of I find a lot of freedom in the fact of, like, I can put a donut on my tracker and know, okay, this is what my caloric range goes. But for other people, that causes a lot of mental stress and issues. So I totally get that. If a client, though, is struggling with even getting their protein in, though, what are some quick tricks or techniques that clients can use to start hitting that, like, 70 to 80 if you're a female, or 100 grams of protein a day if you're?
The obvious answer is just start drinking more protein shakes because, again, small stomach, hard to eat. So, and especially busy people just don't want to take the time to eat. So you just throw a shake at them, maybe a 30 gram to 40 gramish protein shake. That'll boost. That's half your day right there. So that makes it really simple. But there's people that don't like protein shakes, so you got to figure out other options. When I think of protein, I think of food. I think of protein food as protein. I typically don't think of when I go to the grocery store, right? I'm shopping for proteins. I'm shopping for fats. I'm shopping for carbs. That's in my mind what I'm thinking. So when the proteins are the dairy aisle, the meat, chicken, poultry, fish, chicken aisle. And then you have your middle section, you have your canned chicken, your canned tuna. There's not a lot in the midsection. I mean, you can go to the frozen aisle a little bit, but there's not a lot. So animal protein, animal meats, fish, dairy. Then you have supplements like shakes and bars. Bars can be a little bit iffy. Then you have vegetarian, of course, you have tofu and like stuff. So you just kind of find what the patient likes to eat more of, get recipes built around that, make it easy and quick. I should mention eggs. I'm not, eggs are controversial right now, but you have to eat a lot
They're quite expensive.
and they're quite expensive, and you have to eat a lot of eggs. Of course, egg whites are your protein, so you could eat 4 egg whites in a small portion and get about 20 grams of protein there. But so we try to incorporate maybe egg white, egg bakes. All those things you see on Pinterest are really fun to use.
I always think it's funny because I agree. Like if you try to eat hard boiled eggs to hit your protein goal, one, I'll date myself, but you'll look like Cool Hand Luke where he's just popping the eggs to see if he can eat like, oh yeah, it's like he has to eat like 14 dozen eggs.
Yeah.
The funnier part is when Paul Newman shot it, they took 6 cameras and watched him pop 1 egg in his mouth. And then they just used it on repeat. So it looks like a combination of like
Well, that's
camera
smart.
1, 5, 2, 3. Yeah, it's actually pretty
Oh,
cool.
that's a cool bit of movie trivia there. I like that.
This is the beauty of being a history teacher. We just have random stuff like this up here all the time that client, people listening, if you are, you're like, oh, wow, another random thing I never knew. But for the egg trick for us is I like taking 1 egg, cracking it, and then just adding the egg white because it does add volume. So that if you're feeling with hunger at the beginning of the day, you keep the protein and fat balance a little bit more distributed that way in the sense of it leans heavier to a protein source than a fat source
That's
for me.
great. Yeah, I agree. I mean, your calories are low, your protein's higher, you're satiated, hopefully, and you're moving, and if you can even stir in, of course, some cut up veggies, good to go. I mean, there's can't go wrong with eggs as your starter for the morning or any time of day.
Yeah, it's breakfast for dinner. I always say is like the easiest way if you're short on your protein goal. An egg white omelet, if you know how to make it right, is
Oh, yeah.
just like a you can do it on muscle memory. Kind of do that. Adding the vegetables for some fiber. I think bell pepper is highly underrated in an omelet.
Good point. Yeah, bell peppers, mushrooms. I'll take it all. I'm not really picky about that. I agree.
Yeah. So we're having breakfast for dinner. With your experience of working with thousands of patients over the years, I want to get into a little bit of bloopers in the sense of when people are going for their protein goal. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen, or a hey, maybe we should reconsider that?
Ooh, okay. Let me think about this. When
Do,
they're going,
do you want me? Do you want me to go first?
yeah, plant one at me. Let me hear what you said. Let me hear what you got.
Okay, I'm gonna. I know peanut butter has protein in it.
Oh,
I'm
go.
going to use peanut butter to hit my protein goal.
Oh my gosh, wait. Do you know today, like I had a busy day at work I was telling you about, and I did have a patient today. I can call out just pay. Nobody knows who they are. And yeah, she said that. She said that to me. She's like, peanut butter. Yeah, I've been eating a lot of peanut butter to get my protein. And I nicely looked at her and I said, okay, you, peanut butter doesn't have a lot of protein in it. Are you aware of that? She's like, no. I was like, yeah, it's mostly a fat. So wow, that's funny you said that. That happens a lot.
And that's why I went with you with it because I feel like it's almost like fishing with dynamite in some senses. People are like, I'm going to hit my protein goal. I'm going to eat a bunch of hard boiled eggs. And it's like, again, I believe an egg, like when you look at it with the yolk and everything,
Mm-hmm.
still getting protein, but you're going to hit over on your calories
Yeah, they
eventually
don't know the
because of the
yolk
fat.
is Yep, they don't know the yolk is an issue. You know what? If I had more time to think about this, I bet I have a lot of good ones, but I'm thinking something to do with protein shakes. I think it has to do with the type of shake they're drinking or you know what? No, maybe it's a protein bar. They're not able to discern the differences because these bar companies, like, they're marketing
Hard.
hard at you.
It's comically bad.
Yep. And all it all it has to do, granola bars are for sure.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Granola for sure. Things like that. Yeah, you'll get a lot of people thinking something's healthy or full of protein when it's not.
I think we can both agree that reading a nutrition label is probably a necessity if you want to really get good at things. I would go so far as to say. And I'll use an example of there is a cookie that I won't even call it a protein cookie because when you look at the macros on it, you're kind of
Yeah.
like, this is just embarrassingly bad. It's a bad tasting cookie that you're selling as protein, and it'll say 22 grams of protein per container. And then you flip it over, and I'm like, wow, 22 grams of protein per container. That sounds awesome for one cookie. You flip it over, and it's really 220 calories per serving, but there's two servings in the cookie and only 11 grams of protein. And don't quote me, but like 30 carbs, 20 fat, where it's like, yes, there is protein, but no one is carving a cookie in half at a gas station rest stop and saying, like, okay, either say it's 11 grams of protein per cookie or don't call it two servings.
You know what? And they don't have to say that. That's the thing.
They don't.
You should almost be extra angry at that company and boycott them just for trying to screw over, to fool us. But then we'd be mad at all companies, so you can't win that. But or
Yeah.
that's why you want to buy companies that are reputable and honest. I truly believe that. Like, give them your money. Don't give these companies your money. I agree.
I will say, even the companies I work with and some that are sponsored through everything, I like the fact that they're third party tested. I like the fact that their serving size is one serving size. But it is something that you have to really check when you go through that because they put, I swear, every time I go to the grocery store, they put the protein serving bigger and bigger on the box. And then it's like, but how many calories or does this actually have it when it
Yep, all
goes
you
through?
see is the protein. Gosh. Yeah, I've it's been a while since I focused on that because I used to do like a bunch of videos on those things. But yeah, I almost don't like to think about it because it just angers me sometimes how we're fooled every time we walk into a supermarket. It really is frustrating.
Yes. So other questions that always come up with protein that it almost puts the cart before the horse or everything else. Can you only consume 40 grams of protein in one serving?
That's a common question, and I have a very good answer to this that I am pretty confident in. Now, when I say pretty confident, you still have some question marks around protein absorption, and there's still not 100% truth behind. We need more time to study it, but it's simple. Like, your body will know how much protein it needs. You can't store actual protein. So, like we talked about earlier, if you have too much protein, it's going to be utilized in a different way. But in a way, I guess my answer is you can have as much protein as you want at one sitting. 100 grams at one sitting. If you want to drink a 100-gram protein shake, go for it. Your body will take the protein you just drank, and it will utilize it the way it needs. And if there's too much of it, okay, fine. You might end up, you know, converting it to carbs, but it's not something you need to worry about. I tell my patients this: just consume protein. Nobody's going to consume 100 grams anyway at one sitting, so I'm not worried about it. But there's actually no reputable studies that you can point 100% to that I know that say, nope, 40 grams, 41 grams, and God forbid our bodies are exactly the same, 100%. Me versus you. No, of course not. I might
Yes.
be, maybe I'm at 41.5 and you're at 38.7. No,
We both fail.
we both fail. So go ahead. I mean, have your protein and have as much as you want. Don't worry about having too much at one time, especially if you have bariatric surgery, which isn't an issue anyway.
I feel like that puts a lot more of the lid on it than the 40 grams per se. It's, let your sleeve kind of work with you. If you're eating 40 grams of protein, more often than not, you will probably be full at the end of that serving.
Yes.
So just kind of almost is like, yeah, just ballpark. But like I've seen people where they freak out of if they got 45 and they're like, well, what happens to the other five? I'm like, well, it either becomes a very expensive carb for your fuel, or like your body will absorb it in a different way.
Or you're right, and we don't even know. Like, it might utilize it in that muscle that you've been working on. It might take those amino acids, break them down, go to the muscle, utilize it, convert it. It's the amino acids build up into an actual protein like actin, myosin, the muscle protein fibers, right? So these muscle protein fibers require amino acids to build, and the more you give them, the more they build upon themselves and lay that layer of muscle on top of another layer. So if you consume 60 grams of protein in one sitting, there's an argument that that's much needed protein your body needs, and it will use all of it. We just don't know for sure.
Yeah. So interesting when you get to the science and the research and just where we're going to be with all that stuff. So, other things with protein, collagen. Do we count it? Do we not count it? Is it like egg whites, egg yolks? Like when we look at collagen protein, what do people need to know before they buy like a tub of collagen peptides?
It's mythical. It's one of those things that I would say is we don't know if we I don't think the studies show much. I don't think it's helping anybody like they think it's helping them, but it's cheap, it's not too expensive, it's still giving you some protein, and it might be helpful more than we know. So that's the fun thing. That's the fun one. I like to not say to anybody, don't do that because I'm not worried about it hurting you or your pocketbook. So go ahead. I mean, if you feel better on it, if it's making your hair grow 3 times faster, if it's making you feel healthier, go for it. It's not hurting you.
If the research proved that, I promise you, I would be freebasing collagen. I would be injecting it. I would have track marks throughout it. Like I'm holding on for dear, dear life with everything. It grows perfectly on my ears and on my face, but
Yeah,
up top, it like does the
really
worst
does.
thing. It's sad. Like I can get my hair, like I have to go to the barber in 2 days, and it's really more to maintain the beard at this point and to get the weird like wispiness of it than anything else.
You pull it off nice.
Uh, $40 that is just going to be set on fire with all of this. All right.
Just go for
So
college
a
if
lot
you
of my
want it.
clients,
Do collagen if you want to. That's my answer. It's fine.
perfect. All right. So if you're busy, because in Busy Bariatrics, we always say we don't have enough time, and I always think that's an excuse. But if you are busy, what are your best high protein grab and go meal ideas? Or if someone's pinched for time, doesn't have the ability to cook, what are some staples they can have in their house or get on the road that kind of helps them hit their protein?
Well, I can answer that from my own experience. Somebody who walks out the door every day for a long day of work, sometimes not a lot of time to eat, like today. And always bring my cooler, my little pack with my frozen cooler stick in it to keep everything cold. And I'm throwing in beef jerky. I'm throwing in a protein shake pre-made. You'll see a yogurt in there, Oikos 20-gram protein yogurt. And you'll see, not every day, but cottage cheese for sure. And I'll throw in a little fruit. Those 4 things are as quick and easy as you can possibly make, not only to throw in a bag, but to eat as well. I'm not a big protein bar fan, but I'm not against them. I just don't find they just take forever to eat and they're dry. It's not my thing. So those 4 things probably my easiest answer. But you can throw in if you want deli meat. I'm not a big fan of deli meat. I just don't know where this stuff's coming from. It's some of it's scary. Tuna packs, hard-boiled eggs, of course, going back to those, but those aren't very fun to eat. So yeah, that's pretty. I mean, if you want basic, simple, those are my answers. What about you? Do you have one I didn't say?
No, I everything you said is kind of what I like is it's basic and simple, and I hope that theme comes off of I think a lot of the times we overthink it in the bariatric community when it comes to how to hit protein. It's lean meats, Greek yogurt I think is always if you like a dairy more based or if you're like I'm tired of protein shakes it works. I'll do every morning just 2 scoops of whey protein in my cold brew and make like a profi out of that so that I can grab it and go. Yeah, but I'm the same way. I eat out of a lunch bag, and depending on shuttle and everything, I always just take a can of tuna, add 30 grams of light mayo, put it on a roll, and it's like I'll have the same tuna sandwich at about 2 to 3 o'clock every day, just because I know it gets me 42 grams of protein. I can make it on muscle memory, and I don't have to think about much. It's weird. I'll post about it, and people be like, "Send me the recipe." I'm like, "Okay, pen and paper." 1 club roll,
Here's the rest.
1 can tuna, 30 grams light mayo. They're like, anything else? I'm like, no, that's it. Like,
Right.
I don't have time to over create a meal that I'm literally just going to eat and crap out in like another day or
Yeah, I
two.
respect people that can do it. Like I'd love to, and I've done it. Grill up a bunch of marinated chicken, nice grilled chicken, and have it cut up and in the fridge. And I'll do that once in a while, but I just can't do it a lot. I don't know why. I can't. I'm busy. I don't want to do it. But doing that is amazing, and it tastes so good. And one thing I love to do, I just thought of is the shellfish world, of course, shrimp and all that. But I'm more of a lobster meat fan, and I know it's expensive. Crab meat, is expensive. But have you heard of langostino?
Yeah.
You've heard of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trader Joe's well known for having langostino, which is like lobster except 10 times cheaper, and still all protein. It's a protein, and you can easily cook that. It's already cooked when you buy it. You just have to warm it up. Highly recommend those.
I may have to check that because I'm Catholic and we're getting close to Lent where it's no meat. So
Yeah,
hitting a protein goal can be a little tricky, but I always go, my coworkers hate me, by the way, because I will have a shrimp and pasta dish for lunch and then a tuna sandwich at the end of the day. And they literally are just like, why are you doing this to us? I'm like, well, I wanted to microwave salmon, but
I know people
I try to keep it fresh.
people do get mad when you eat fish around them.
It's tough. Quick question though, because you mentioned it and we kind of touched upon it. If you're looking to be a vegetarian or vegan, protein can be a little trickier.
Hmm.
What is your best advice if you live a vegetarian or vegan or a specialty lifestyle where it is more plant based to hit your protein goal
It's
every day?
funny. You asked that question, and my answer is most people that go as far as to be a vegan or a vegetarian, they're going to be not more informed than a non-vegetarian vegan, but I find that they've already done a lot of the legwork to become that. So they're pretty much they know what they need to eat for protein. Not everyone, so it's easier. It's easy. I already know, but if you say go to Whole Foods, you're going to find vegan yogurt. They know that already. Vegan cheeses, vegan dairy, basically. So you go into the vegan world. I think it's I had a client go actually to Whole Foods with me who was a vegan, and we walked through the store together and explored it. I learned a lot too. All the options they have. I love Whole Foods for vegan, but if people across the country, you might have a local place that you like. Edamame to tofu, anything tofu based is going to be the best option for you. And protein shakes, vegan, of course. Pea protein, for instance, are great. And then there's more options than ever now out there. Do you have any vegan clients?
No. I think the diet and the stuff that I post might scare the daylights out of them, but it comes up every now and then, and I think it's important that if that's what you want to do, you do inform yourself and get a better feel for it. I always forget edamame is a really good, I joke, late night snack because a lot of the times for me snacking prior to weight loss surgery, it didn't really have as much to do with the food per se so much as it was the experience of like chewing something
Oh yeah,
while I was watching television with my family if they have snacks or stuff that they want. And for me, edamame, I always forgot is like it's almost like shelling peanuts at a little bit of a healthier vegetable rate. So
absolutely,
it
you're
was
right.
a good
Why not eat it? I mean, it's easy and quick and tastes pretty good to me. Salted, a little salt won't hurt you.
perfect. And then when we look at it for long term success, I'm trying to think how best to word it. How do you like just maintain like your protein levels when for clients that get to like 3 to 5 or even 7 years out? Like, does the protein goal kind of change as you get further out from bariatric surgery, or is that more based on performance and their goals there?
Yeah, it's a fluctuating thing. Like I've had clients who never strength train in their lives start to do it. To those who, it really comes down to strength training. It comes. I don't know I don't know what better term. Maybe you know one, because people get afraid of the term strength training. If I say lifting weights, they hate that term. But utilizing, pushing, and pulling your muscles.
Mike, it's the internet. There, I promise you, whatever verb or noun we use in this podcast, there is an angry person in their basement who is writing a blog of why we're wrong.
Good point.
So call it strength training and
Let's
let's
call it
just keep
that. Let's call it
yeah.
that. And so it does come down really to that long farther out patient to settle in on amount of protein that they can stay around for life, assuming their activity level is pretty much around the same. So we find that number. And if that number is whatever, 70 grams, 80 grams of protein, which is kind of the sweet spot for most, especially my female patients, then you stay there. Now, if they tell me, hey, I'm going to start training for an Ironman or something crazy, of course we're going to go up into the 1.4, 1.7 grams per kilogram, which is the higher where you're at. Probably you're higher than that. Um, so you gotta go with the fluidity of the patient. But ultimately, my thing is consistency is how you're going to keep this weight off. So you have to find what works for you for life, whatever amount of protein that is.
Yeah, and I think it comes with lifestyle and everything else. It's just a good rule for everything. If you like strength training, it makes it a lot easier than if you don't like it, but finding the movement that complements everything
So I
plays.
wonder why people don't like strength training, and I asked them this, and they don't really have an answer. They don't have a real answer. Like they'll have a generic answer, like I just don't like it, or I sweat, or I don't like gyms, or nothing really deep to where I'm satisfied with it. I don't know if you've heard
I,
that.
So it comes to a lot, and I will always use from my own personal experience. I hate running. I love the people who run. There are amazing people who run in the community. I hate running.
Okay, why?
I
Ask
this is
those
what I'm
people
going to get
why.
into.
Okay, go ahead.
I've never experienced the joy that other people say they have when they're doing it. There has never been a point that I've consistently done it enough that I've gotten any sort of like dopamine hit. And I think that's the bigger part is it comes down to some people just don't get the vibe or the dopamine hit of I enjoy doing this and I'm getting an endorphin rush.
So thereby you have to have that to do it in a way. It could be
Yeah.
mediocre. It could be not horrible, but not dopamine inducing. If it's in the middle, is that okay? Or is that meh?
For me, yes. So, like, the example I'll use is I do cardio and I hit a step goal every day. So, I don't necessarily run, but I know the importance of cardiovascular health. So, I'll do some zone two work. But when I do it, I'm on a treadmill, I'm watching my favorite TV show, I'm playing a game on my iPad, and I'm messaging people on my phone. Like, I can't stress enough. I don't get a there's some lack of joy or neural receptor that goes through my mind.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm correct either. It's
Okay.
just like that's how I kind of get it when people say that. And like there are people who are like, but isn't running great for you? I'm like, yeah, it's a great form of cardiovascular exercise. I've never gotten the joy out of it.
Yeah.
But I know it's important and I do it.
You get through it. I
I
like
do.
it. I like it. I hear you. And you have to be understanding of that when you work with people and those who are listening. If you really don't like something, you're likely not going to do it very long. And that's just the
Yes.
realness. So I get that.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's funny because every now and then I will meet with someone before they sign up for coaching, and they'll be like, "Well, I don't really want to lift," and I kind of have to be like, "Well, I don't really think I'm the best coach for you for
Yeah.
this." But it comes down to finding people that you love. Like I know Jen Borwinkle is a bariatric running coach, and she strength trains the way that I do cardio. It's really just to get her better at the things she likes to do.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how I have to look at it. Like for me, running or cardio is not something I naturally enjoy, but I do know it makes me healthier. I like being able to get up a flight of stairs and feel better with it. And
You love
it's kind
strength
of like
training.
eating. What's that now?
But you love strength training, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Love
I
that.
find joy every day I go in. Yeah.
Right. And then thank goodness you love that because I mean, what else is there? If you don't love strength training or cardio,
There's people who feel that way.
harder to
Yeah.
get through life. Yeah, it's harder to do things. So I'm glad you love it. Did you learn to
Yeah.
love it or did you find that it was already there for you?
That's a great question. For me, I loved it in high school. I got injured. I associated that the only reason I lifted weights was for sports.
Yeah.
And when I was no longer doing sports in high school or college, it was like, well, then why do I need to be strong?
Wow, that's powerful. I didn't think about that. That's a good point. Why do it? Yeah.
I'm not saying the logic is sound, but I know this is how I ended up where I was. And it became, well, if I'm hungover from drinking through college, I especially don't feel like running around or moving my body.
Right.
And I slowly, like, just built a sedentary lifestyle of finishing high school and college sports, eating and drinking more while moving less was the perfect storm to get to it. But getting back into lifting after bariatric surgery, I forgot how much I enjoyed like lifting heavy weights. I liked how the muscles felt
Yeah.
when I pulled and did my work. I liked the look that I had in the mirror, and I was willing to learn to love whatever would get me that look.
There you go. Yeah, you've come around full circle, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Have you always liked like running and exercise?
No, not at all. I never, when I was in college, I was very skinny. So I'm 6'3", I was about 160. And
Wait, what? Rewind.
6'3", I weighed 160 and when I was, in college. Yeah, I was skinny.
You gotta send me a picture of this. Like you must like it's 6'3", 160.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I can send you. Yeah, let me find a picture for you.
Send the college pic. We're putting that up on the material for this.
Yes, I was. Exercise in that respect wasn't necessary in my life because, of course, I didn't weigh anything, so I didn't feel the need. I never thought I needed to get bigger. I was a tennis player, baseball player type. So when I got married, I looked down and saw that weight, I saw the scale going up on its own, as we all do when we get married, right? So I started to get a little bit uneasy about it and started into the strength training world. I strength trained maybe a few times. I wasn't a football player, obviously. So I really jumped into it in my early 30s. I'm 51 now. So about 20 years, I've been strength training pretty consistently. I'm about 220 pounds now and very happy at this weight. But it's something I learned. And that's why I like to teach. I don't care what age you are. You can pick this up and start learning more about it. And I love feeling strong. It's amazing.
I will say feeling strong is probably the biggest thing that my clients always say keeps them going to the gym.
Yeah.
Like I have some clients who are in their 60s now and they lift 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
They challenge the weights. They're doing progressive overload, so they are pushing their numbers and increasing reps and weights. And it's cool to see people fall in love with that at any age. I have a couple clients in their 40s and 50s who have made their own little group where it's the Squat Your Spouse Club, where they are squatting the weight of their
Oh.
husband's. Yeah. Yeah. I have like 3 clients who are squatting for sets of 6 in the 250 to 300 range. And it's just cool to see people
Mhm.
have a clear, you can work towards a number, you can get yourself stronger every day or challenge yourself.
The thing that I found that the reason I haven't stopped in 20 years, and I know you never will either, is because we know the research on protein and we know that in muscle fibers, and they start to weaken after just 2 or 3 weeks of, go on vacation. If you go on a 3-week vacation, you don't do any strength training, you're already losing some. So in my mind, I just do it every day because unless I were to get injured or something serious happens, say, thank goodness nothing has, you have to have the mentality of just keep doing it, keep going. You're never going to stop until your last breath or you really get hurt. Obviously something might happen to you. But even then, I mean, I have a patient who is paraplegic in a wheelchair. She has, I believe, paraplegic. She has use of her upper body. She's an inspiration to me. She's doing the hand. She's doing the cardio. She's doing strength training. She's lost 100+ pounds with the surgery, the sleeve. And,
Phenomenal.
I mean, I think people like that, you think about, like, I have able body. I can get up and go to the gym every day. I'm not expecting everybody else to, by the way. But, hey, if you have time, my kids are grown. It's a lot easier for me.
You're in the fun stage. Are you now officially an empty nester at this point?
They're in college. They go to U of A and ASU, like the rival schools. I have 3 kids. 2 go to ASU, 1 goes to U of A. So they come home all this. I mean, Tucson's not about a 2-hour drive from me, but my Tucson daughter is in town this weekend. So yeah, empty nester, but still they're always here.
Yeah, but that's like the perfect blend of like it's weekend here and be like you can go back to school now.
Yeah, I love
like
it.
that.
I
That's
hang
got to
out,
be a fun.
kick them out. They come back and once in a while. It's fun.
It's always good like that. But yeah, and I think it just shows. Like there's clients I've had that have had knee replacement surgery, and it's like you can still do uppers, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, your upper body's fine.
No,
Just
they
do
don't
all
know
your
that.
exercises."
Why don't they see
Yeah.
that? I know.
I think it's tough. Like I've had to deal with calcium deposits in my shoulders, so eventually they'll get so bad I can't lift my arm and I have to ultrasound them out.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, and it's
But if you have
it's
upper
funny
body
because
capability, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you have
yeah,
upper body capability, it's our job to try to, like you do, tell them, hey, you can do so much. Just because your legs aren't all useful, you can still.
my coach murdered me. He was like, "Okay, we're doing like 3 leg days a week until your shoulder's ready." And I promise you, I did my PT so hard because I wanted to get back to like having like a 3 day, like a 4 day split of like a full body, a leg, an arm, and do all that good stuff.
Good for your PT.
But 3 leg days a week made it gnarly
Yeah,
at
that's
the
a
end.
lot, man.
All right. So I know we're getting close, so I want to go through just one more question.
Time's flying.
Are there any warning signs? And then we'll go to the lightning round. So we do the fun stuff.
Okay.
I know. Spoiler alert. One more question. Are there any early warning signs that someone isn't getting enough protein, even if they think they are?
In terms of medical issues, well, the first thing you'll want to look at is you want to get your labs done. You want to look at something called prealbumin. Okay, it's a not always prescribed. So if the doctor doesn't, you make sure the doctor puts it on there. Bariatric surgeon should, but you want to look at, I get labs every day, and I'm looking right at that pre-albumin number because it's going to give us, it's a shorter half-life. It's going to give us a number that's indicative of your protein intake over the last few months, not just what you ate yesterday and you had your blood drawn today. So that's a great,
I like that better.
yes. So that's if it's under 17, if it's in the 13 range, 14 range, I know the patient isn't doing their job on protein. So it's like a dead giveaway.
Is that kind of like the week before I go to the dentist? I'm like, I'm going to floss the daylights out of
Yeah,
my
can't
teeth
wait.
and
You
hope
have to
that they
do it.
know it. And yeah, the whatever we call the dental hygienist looks at me every time. It's like, you're full of it.
You're full of
We'll say
crap.
itch. Yeah,
You know
you're
what
full
you
of it.
did. You know what you did. Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
get away with it. You can't get away with the protein. So pre-albumin, we're going to look for that. But that's the thing with protein intake is you're not technically going to feel, you're not going to know what it feels like. I mean, in our civilized country where we're still getting enough protein. Let's face it, nobody's like going to die of protein malnutrition. But yeah, you
yes,
might feel tired. Sure, you might feel run down. You might feel weaker. You might feel like you're just sagging. You know, all the muscle loss is going to occur from that. But you really won't know. I mean, in terms of like day to day, unless you really know your body.
yeah.
But have you ever worked out?
Always interesting. What's that?
Sorry about interrupting. Have you ever worked out and you felt just sluggish and you felt like you need to sit down or just weird? And you thought about, did you have any protein today? Or you may have thought, yeah, did I eat much today? That feeling could be indicative of none for that day, right? Not for that month, but for that initial workout, you might not have gotten enough protein.
I will say when I have to like shoot commercials or do photo shoots and everything, my coach will put me through a different protocol. And it will deplete a little bit of carbs. We'll do some water
But yeah,
manipulation. We'll move the protein numbers around. But I am painfully aware of why I feel like hot garbage during the last 4 workouts of that 2 week cycle. But at the same time, I know exactly how to turn it back and regulate it
yeah.
afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's experience and that's knowledge and that's working. It's we learn that. You have to keep learning about your body. It's so important, especially the first year after weight loss surgery for sure.
Exactly. So we're getting close to the end, and I want to make sure that I respect your time. So I want to go to the lightning round.
All right.
No interviews have come out of the podcast yet. So I tell everyone this will look normal when we do it. But when I interview someone, we use the busy method in Busy Bariatrics, where each letter stands for part of your bariatric journey.
Okay.
The B is for building habits. What's the best habit someone can build after bariatric surgery?
Consistency. Make sure you find what works for you aside from life's curveballs that will be thrown at you. You are consistent. Eating times around the same every day. Workout times around the same every day. If you can do that, and your brain remembers it, it becomes like you showered, but you forgot you showered. That's what you want for sure. Absolutely. That's probably the easiest answer.
I throw so many things on automatic pilot just by being in routine that like I don't even remember how I made my tuna sandwich
Yeah.
this evening for
So true.
tomorrow. But it's
You
like,
want that. You
yeah,
want not to remember. That means you're doing it right.
exactly. The U goes for understanding nutrition. If you could teach one lesson or just wave your wand and every bariatric patient knew this about nutrition, what would it be?
Okay, it's a lightning round. You got to think of an answer quick. God, if they knew, I'm gonna say, understanding that all roads. I know it's kind of goes to this topic. All roads start at protein. All success starts at protein. There are, of course, other important things, but if you have to know something, you have to understand your protein needs, your intake, what it is, obviously from this podcast, and everything else should go from there. Eat your protein first. Eat it every time you eat a meal or snack. Make sure you get it in.
I think you just titled this episode. I like all roads start at protein. That might be
Nice.
what we label
All
this.
right,
I
I love
love that.
it. Good.
No, but it's so good because when I think of my bariatric journey, if I had to learn about one macronutrient first, it was protein. And a lot of what it came down to was how well did I learn that? And then the rest kind of fell into place from how I learned it. So I
And
love that.
and right, and protein's not that hard. Carbs are much more involved. There's more of them. There's more names of them. It's a little bit more basic and simple to understand. So that's the good thing. You should learn it first anyway.
Love that. All right. The S is for staying active. What is your favorite way to stay active?
My personal one, or what I recommend.
Either one.
I'm gonna say try if you're sitting, And my thing is just don't sit. I mean, if you can avoid sitting, again, you have to for work, you should stand or move your body. I'm guilty. I'll sit a lot, but personally, I love getting out of the house and going to the gym and bettering myself so I can come home to my family, be a better dad, husband, be healthier, all that good stuff. So just prioritize something. But if anything, you don't have a gym membership, just don't sit all day. Move,
Let's go walk.
go
It's such
walk.
a simple way to do it. All right, the why you started to answer it in S, I think, but I'll let you go. What is your favorite way to show up for yourself?
Oh man, it's the mindful thought process that you have to make each morning when you wake up on what you're going to do for yourself that day. You need to think of others for sure, but if you don't think of yourself first, then everybody else is going to fall, they're not going to get the benefit of the best person that you can be. So just being
I love that answer and the intention around it.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely. You got to be there for yourself in the morning, figure out what the day is going to bring you, make it the best day you can, and obviously forgive yourself if it ends up being a little bit crappy, which it will be a
Yeah.
few days.
Hey, not every day is perfect, especially in your bariatric journey. But I do always tell my clients, and I try to tell myself this, how I show up for those imperfect days is something I can control. So
Good point. I love that.
something to think about. All right, you're like,
Love it.
Rob, I spelled busy. There can't possibly be another question, but we put an exclamation point at the end of
Okay.
it, and we have it stand for healthy forms of dopamine. What is a healthy form of dopamine that you like to get?
For me personally, I think my best dopamine is a great pair of headphones with really good music. And for me, music, I'm all over the map. I'm a 70s. I was around 90s, 80s. I'll take Metallica, hard rock, I'll take Megadeth, but also take rap all day long. I love it. I love a nice, good bass in my ears and putting me in another place when I'm in the gym. That's my dopamine.
The
It's great.
Yeah, the vibe of like whatever your playlist is and when they're your songs. And I have special ones for when I'm in the gym and I have special songs for when I cool down, but it like can absolutely trigger that extra bit of emotion that just makes it that much more fun.
I agree. It really does something to you. It's a studied ergonomic in that it does motivate. It's proven to motivate. We know that. So it's okay if you work out with no headphones. Some people think that's a great thing, like you're manly because you don't need anything. But
Nope, that's the first sign I know you're a serial killer. When the true
you
documentary
don't need
comes out.
that, right?
Yep, nope. When the true documentary comes out, and they're like, "Did you know this guy at the gym was a serial killer?" Absolutely. Worked out with no
Right.
headphones at 5 o'clock in the morning every day. I'll be the guy in the true crime be like, no, he listens to the Planet Fitness Haddon Township, New Jersey playlist at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's a true testament he hasn't killed more people. And that will be me on the true crime
You're gonna
documentary.
hang on that one. You know what? The best thing is the coolest thing is when you go up to somebody at the gym, they have to do this first to answer your question. You know that movement right there. You know you've been working out for a long time because you automatically grab the headphone out of your ear or you stop it. This is kind of dumb though. One of these.
I kind of am a tapper though, because it's like I get it out and then it's like, what are you saying? And
It's
then it's like
cooler to pull it out though.
the pull out move almost says like, hey, I'm sending a vibe to you of like I'm paying attention and I'm putting effort into listening to you. I will say I do like the big noise canceling on the planes because that when you see them in the gym as well, I feel is like the ultimate sign of like, look, I'm not trying to talk to you.
That's true.
I'm in my own little world.
Leave me alone.
Like that is almost my favorite form of self-care is when I'm flying alone, I put the massive headphones on and it's like I watch a movie undisturbed and I sit quietly
Nobody
to
talks to you.
myself for 2 hours. Yes.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, just something to consider. So, Mike, this has always been great. I miss catching up with you and talking
It was
shop.
fun.
Where can people find you if they want more information or consume more of your?
Well, go check me out, dietitiandadnutrition.com. You can see what I got going on over there. Dietitian_dad on TikTok and Instagram. Tons of videos, tons of tips. My podcast is Dietitian Dad Podcast. So that name is all over everything I do.
Perfect. Love it. I'll put some links in the show notes for everyone.
Thank you.
So, Mike, I want to thank you to come on. And if
Pleasure.
you are still listening, thank you so much, everyone. If you're still listening to this, if you want more from our content, please go ahead and hit subscribe to our YouTube page, Busy Bariatrics, for more in-depth content and tips on how to crush your bariatric journey. If you like this episode and think we deserve it, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Every week, we will be giving away one free product from our sponsors and announcing the winner on our Friday email list, so be sure to subscribe there as well. If you feel this episode can help someone, screenshot it and drop it in your stories with a link to the episode to help spread the love. And as always, keep getting busy. Bye, Mike.
Bye.